You see it?
Yeah.
I see it!
Oh, there it's coming. Perfect.
King's Dark Tidings by Kelcade. I know in the descriptions that I have this listed as a review for the third book, but I'm going to be actually reviewing the whole series. So I'm going to go under the assumption that you've read the first 2 books through this whole review. So if you haven't, I suggest you stop watching this video now. That being said, this is one of those books that I came across because it was one of the best sellers, but I had never heard of the author or the series. I noticed that the book that I saw the ad for was for the third book, and I hadn't read the first book, so I went ahead and got the first book and liked it so much that I just sat down basically and finished the entire series. Here's one of those authors that just comes out of nowhere. I don't think he has anything else written and writes an excellent series and just somehow becomes a bestseller, which is crazy. But that's because the book is really good. I have to say though that the first book is still by far my favorite. And obviously, if you're watching this review, you know the basic plot where Rezkin is raised, has a very harsh upbringing in a fort with a lot of masters, teaching him and training him his whole life until that horrible event at the fort happens and he is basically abandoned. No idea what he was trained for. His whole life was a preparation for something, but he has no idea what that is, and ventures out from the fort kind of shrouded in all this mystery and uncertainty. And so we get to follow the character, and really, I feel the whole point of the first book is basically introducing us to the character, and the main struggle of the character being really his social awkwardness, really not having a lot of the same standard things a normal person would have in their life, like parents and family and siblings, but being a master at swordplay and whatever else, and being a very dangerous individual. And it almost reminds me of like a reverse Dumb and Dumber, like in that movie, how you had these guys who just kind of stumbled through existence and everyone just for some reason thought they were good. It was the other way around. Everyone thought he was just socially awkward, but really all the way as they're like going down these really dangerous streets, they'd go and camp, and at night he'd venture out and dispatch all the robbers and everything else, and in the morning they'd find him and be like, who are these guys, where'd they come from? And he just kind of played dumb. And so that was basically the first book, and I really had enjoyed it. At the end, you kind of got a glimpse of what his purpose might be based on the clues, like for example, the sword he carries and its purpose and how rare it is and why it would be reserved for him is kind of a big clue, and also the documentation he finds with it. But that's the first book. The second book has to do more with that tournament. Obviously, a lot more happens in that book, but the one glaring fault with that book is that since he's a master and been trained his whole life, he almost isn't challenged through the entire book. And that's almost like the same problem Superman has. He's so powerful that nobody can touch him. He goes through this whole tournament without even getting a cut. No one's going to point at him at all. A little bit unbelievable, but also it's like he just kind of comes off as like a bully, not really challenged. Which, how are we supposed to relate to the character and care for the character if he just walks through every potential bad guy like it was no big deal? He's not really challenged. It can get a little bit boring. That being said, I do think the third book addressed that. He is very challenged in the third book. Get to see a little bit more of the character development of the people around him. A little bit more complex. His double life is getting a little bit more harder to manage. And his purpose, obviously, is starting to get a little bit more clear. And it's like the story starts to really take shape. Now, originally I thought this was supposed to be like a trilogy or something, but clearly there's more books to follow. And like I said, this author just came out of the woodwork with this great series. I hope it continues. I also like that there's not a whole lot of time in between books. It seems like these were all published fairly recently. Hopefully he's not going to do like all these other series that you get dedicated to, and then the author takes like a 4-year break in between books. Hope that's not the case, but really pleasantly surprised with this series. I don't know if this is his first effort. Maybe he has some other books that he had practiced on or what, but if it's his first series, it's pretty good. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you agree with me on which book you think is the best. Like I said, I personally prefer the first one, kind of that whole dynamic. I wish it would have continued, but I could see how that could get kind of a little bit boring if that was like all 3 books were like following around a guy who just super socially awkward. I like how he develops. There's like a purpose for it. In each book, I feel like you get just a little bit more of a glimpse. And even though in the second book, I don't feel like he's challenged at all, you get the sense of kind of making a journey with the characters. So looking forward to the fourth book. Also, don't forget to check out my book, Generation's End, now released on hardcover only, hopefully coming soon in an ebook format, and if everything goes well, hopefully audiobook will follow. Also, I'll post a link below for the time-lapse of the jacket design. I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. Check it out, and I hope you guys like it.